Now, did those visiting the tomb see angels or men? Well, it's not contradictory for the four gospel writers to refer to the angels as either men or as angels. Both are correct. Why? Well, throughout the Bible, it is not uncommon to find angels first described as men and then as angels, or vice versa. Genesis 19 is just one example of what can be found many other places concerning angels. Genesis 19:1 reads, "Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom." A few verses down in verse 5 we read, "The men of Sodom called to Lot and said to him, 'Where are the men that came to you tonight?'" referring to the angels. Obviously, the angels looked like men. Another example is Judges 13, verses 9 and 10, where we read, "And the angel of God came again to the woman as she was sitting in the field. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, 'Behold, the man,'" referring to the angel, "'who came the other day has appeared to me.'" Now again, first the person is identified as an angel. Secondly, he's identified as a man. A careful study of all the passages throughout the Bible, both Old and New Testament, will reveal that whenever angels appear to men, they're almost always described as looking just like men. Throughout the Bible, angels may specifically reveal that they are angels in some unique way, as they did in Matthew 28:2 and 3, or they may keep their angelic nature entirely hidden. For example, Hebrews 13:2 states, "Some have entertained angels without knowing it." Of the four gospel writers, Matthew specifically states it was an angel of the Lord that came down from heaven. Mark says, "They saw a young man dressed in a white robe," but something about him alarmed the women. Luke identifies the persons present as being angels. He says, "Two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them." Luke also records the women were frightened by them. John specifically says Mary saw two angels in white. So in brief, the four gospel writers' descriptions of angels is not unique to them. They agree with how angels are described throughout the rest of Scripture. But then Mr. Nayland thinks the writers have erred in reporting how many angels the women saw. Well, first we must remember the four gospel writers are describing that period of time from before dawn on Easter Sunday morning until late that night. If we summarize, their description starts with Jesus' resurrection. Then an earthquake occurred as an angel descended and rolled away the stone. The guards are frightened by the angel and flee. After a period of time, Mary Magdalene, who is on her way to meet her other women companions at the tomb, arrives before the others do. She sees that the stone is rolled away and the tomb is empty. She immediately goes to tell Peter and John. After she leaves, the other Mary and Salome approach the tomb and see the angel described in Matthew 28:5, and then they leave. Then Joanna and the other women arrive at the tomb, and they see the two angels mentioned in Luke 24:1. In the meantime, Mary Magdalene reaches Peter and John, tells them about the stone being rolled away. They immediately leave her and run to the empty tomb. Mary slowly follows behind and again arrives at the tomb, but after Peter and John have already departed. Standing all alone, weeping, she looks into the tomb and sees the two angels recorded in John 20, verse 12. Now, this harmonization of the gospel accounts suggests a plausible sequence of events detailing who came to the tomb and when. There are no contradictions. Finally, were the angels inside or outside of the tomb? And how many were there? If we assume that beings called angels do exist, it is reasonable to assume that even angels will sometimes move during the day, that they may come and go as they please and appear and disappear as they please. I believe all the accounts agree that the angels were inside the tomb. Second, all the accounts agree that the angels were sitting. Third, all the accounts agree in what the angels said to the women to tell the disciples. Now first, do all the accounts agree that the angels were inside the tomb? Well, as we've already seen, the appearance of the two angels to Mary is a different account entirely than the events described by Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Mary's encounter takes place after Peter and John have left the tomb to go and tell the others what has happened. Both Mark and Luke agree that the angels were inside the tomb. Mark states, in entering the tomb, they, that's the women, saw a young man sitting at the right. Luke states, the women found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, behold, two men suddenly stood near them in dazzling apparel. So both Mark and Luke agree that the angels were inside the tomb.